Hello viewers, I want us to watch this interesting video. I will be back.
I've lived in 5 different countries in Africa. I've lived in Malawi, Botswana, Zambia, Morocco, and Nigeria. Never once in all my years of living or traveling on the African continent have I been mistreated in any way because of my ethnicity, because of my skin color. And this is in spite of the fact that I come from a country who are guilty for some of the worst colonial crimes ever inflicted throughout human history. That's right, I was born in Great Britain. And without doubt, the British and the French committed the greatest atrocities across the continent of Africa. The Belgians have a good claim for the greatest atrocity in their treatment of the Congolese, but if one looks at it as an entity and the number of countries that were invaded by the British and French colonialists, one will see that they are the worst protagonists. Despite this, and despite the behavior of my ancestors, I have never been mistreated. In fact, I have been welcomed warmly in all of the countries I have lived in or visited. And when in Africa, I don't cocoon myself in some enclave dome which is inhabited by people who like to refer to themselves as expats. I hate that term. But no, I integrate as much as possible within local society. I will go to a shebeen. I will go to any compound and experience life as it is for people in the country where I am based. So whether that's in the village, whether it's in the township, whether it's in the local bar, I will integrate, I will mix, and I am always made welcome. Now contrast that with the way many Africans are treated when they choose to live in the United Kingdom or France or other parts of Europe. The difference is incredible. The everyday racism experienced by African people on the European continent is a crime against humanity. Now, there are different types of racism. The most obvious is the day-to-day experience that an African will have whilst living in parts of Europe. The name calling, the staring, the subtle discrimination. And for many Africans, they will just brush it off because it is so common that they just get used to it, sadly. Worse, though, is the institutional and structural racism that Africans have to abide with. The restrictions on their movements, the fact that most passports emulating from the African continent will only allow Africans to travel visa-free to a handful of countries. And most of those will be other African countries or countries in the Caribbean. And moreover, the difficulty that Africans have finding work in Europe is unimaginable. People who are qualified as doctors, accountants, lawyers, university lecturers, nurses, teachers do not have their qualifications and experiences recognized by most European countries. I know many people from Africa working in various parts of Europe as security guards or as care assistants when back home they had highly skilled professional jobs. But that experience is rarely recognized when they come to Europe unless they come as part of a transfer with an existing company. But if they come because they've migrated to Europe, their chances of accessing the sort of job which they are eminently capable of is slim. Now, if a black person was making this video, they would be quickly dismissed. They'd be dismissed as having an axe to grind or always trying to find problems. And again, that's part of racism. The fact that I can speak because of my white privilege means that I have a duty to do so. Not because I'm married to an African woman or because I have many African friends, but because I like to think I'm a decent human being who appreciates the value in every person on our planet.
When it comes to hospitality, majority of African countries are known for that, especially my country, Ghana. You come to Ghana and only thing you are going to experience is peace, hospitality. We are so welcoming that especially many diasporans are now moving to Africa. I'm going to share my experience in Kenya also when I was there in 2006 to 2010. And before I went to Kenya, I heard a whole lot of news about this country. I was told the crime rate in Kenya is one of the highest in Africa. So initially when I went there, I was scared to move around. I was always at home. United, my uncle was working for the UNEP, so they were always giving them guidelines of how they should move, when they go out, the time they should come home. And these security guidelines were what we were using to guard ourselves. But as a teenager who has gone to a new country, I wanted to explore because I find Kenyans interesting because I got the opportunity to school there. So I met a few Kenyans who were very interesting people to work with or have a conversation with. So I decided not to really bother all these guidelines UN is giving to us and restricting us for knowing the Kenyans. So I disobeyed my uncle, the rules, and I decided to mingle with the Kenyans. I visited the most so-called dangerous parts in Kenya, Nairobi, which is the Eastleigh. I went there to shops several times. Nothing happens to me. I was going to their intercity neighborhood, places like Kakamega. I was going to places where they have described there as dangerous place, and I did not find anything danger about the places. I decided to know more about Nairobi. I made some friends and we went out several times, and I realized a whole lot of stories I have been told were untrue. A whole lot of stories that have been told to me was not the fact. Kenyans were welcoming and hospitable like Ghanaians. I was shocked because the type of pictures they painted to me about Kenya was not what I experienced. I experienced the most wonderful moments in my life in Nairobi. I enjoyed myself for all the time I spent in Kenya. I went out to eat, ugali and nyama choma. I was going out in the restaurant to eat chapati. I was going out to eat pilau. We were going to, safaris, and I experienced, my stay in Kenya was wonderful. So that is where I started learning that until you judge a country or until you believes in some assumptions or some bad propaganda of a country. You have to experience it yourself. You have to experience it yourself. Now, anyone who is trying to visit Africa, you have been told that Africa is a dangerous place. Africa is a place or is a no-go area. There are a whole lot of disease, viruses. You will be told, and I was told even sometimes when you are coming to Africa, they tells you to take some shots of some injection, and because if you come here and you are bite by mosquito, you are going to die, and a whole lot of things. So Africa has been painted as the most dangerous continent in the world, but rather the most dangerous continent in the world are the so-called Western countries. That is where you experience racism. Anyone who has traveled to Europe will witness or will say these things, that what they have experienced is unbearable. They take, even when you take your certificate from Africa and you travel with it to these Western countries, you are not going to get any job. You are going to do a manual job. You are going to be a cleaner, a janitor. You'll be taking care of old women, but maybe you are a graduate, you are a doctor. Until you pass through their system, they don't even recognize you as someone who is educated or as a professional who can also work in their systems. Most of Africans are facing racism in most of these European countries, but they have no option because they think that is the only place they can succeed. And they compare the money they make in these countries, and they compare it to their countries, and they realize that country is far better than Africa. So most of the times they will go and they are going to be mistreated, they are going to be abused. Racists are going to abuse them, but they don't have any option than to say, yes, I do. That is why we are sitting here trying to liberate Africa, trying to voice out to our leaders that home is home, home sweet home. Look at what this man is saying. He said every African country he has visited has been welcome. Yes, majority says that when the whites normally comes to Africa, they receives a more welcoming atmosphere than if another African travel to that country. But sometimes I also find it every African countries appreciates a foreigner, because that is how we are raised. So whether you are white or whether you are African American or African British, when you come to Africa and they realize you are a foreigner, they are not going to racially abuse you like how we are being abused out there. We rather welcome you to our family, treat you, even we treat you special, not because we see your skin color, because most of the African Americans who are also coming to Ghana are being treated the same way. We respect foreigners. Africans respect foreigners. And if not that, let's cast our mind back to colonial era. My beliefs is that because of our welcoming nature, because of how we treat foreigners, that is why the Europeans were able to invade our countries. That is why the Europeans were able to invade our countries, because we received them to our homes and they betray us by implementing the colonial and the slave trade. It was betrayal that caused slave trade. Please, if you want to join us to discuss about the well-being of Africa, go to my description box and click on the Telegram link. It will take you straight to my Telegram page for us to talk about the well-being of Africa. If today is also your first time joining us on this channel, then don't forget to subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification button so that anytime I upload any great content, you will be notified. Thanks for watching.